On today's show, why have the Houston Rockets been so inefficient offensively this season? A possible trade with a Western Conference opponent, and a look ahead at NBA Cup action and the back-to-back matchups against the LA Clippers. It's all coming up on today's Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Thursdays. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets, where the best way you can help us grow our show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform of your choosing. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Drop us a comment while you're there. Just do a drive-by. Say Go Rockets. It helps us out a ton. And also be sure to subscribe to our new daily Locked On Rockets newsletter. Please subscribe to the newsletter. We're still trailing the Dallas Mavericks in newsletter subscribers. I don't like that feeling. Please help me out there. Now, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And as always, thanks so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you so much for being one of our amazing everydayers. On today's show, we're going to dive into some of the numbers and some of the biggest reasons for the Rockets' inefficiency on the offensive end of the floor so far this season, the biggest culprits offensively through 11 games at this point. We're also going to take a look at NBA Cup action and the back-to-back pair of games against the LA Clippers, the first of which happening on Wednesday, just a regular season game, and then the second of which will be the Rockets' first taste of NBA Cup action this season on Friday. So a quick refresher on how NBA Cup group play works and how the Rockets can try to get themselves into the knockout stage, all that good stuff. But where we're going to start is a potential trade with a Western Conference opponent, the OKC Thunder, a trade that has been staring me in the face for the past few days now, really ever since Chet Holmgren's gruesome injury. Look, you never want to see injuries happen, even though OKC is, a Western Conference rival, and even though the Rockets have a long-standing history with OKC, a little bit of chippiness between these two teams, that injury sucks. It sucks for Chet. It sucks for the Thunder. You never want to see that kind of stuff happen. But look, Chet fell. He basically busted his hip on a very awkward fall. He's out for the next 8 to 10 weeks before he's even reevaluated, right? That's not even a guarantee that he'll be back in 8 to 10 weeks. So what is that, 2.5 months for OKC? That's a tough blow for them. They're also still without Isaiah Hartenstein that they dropped all that cash on this offseason. He was going to be reevaluated in 5 to 6 weeks, and that was about mid-October. So realistically, we're thinking early December at the best for Isaiah Hartenstein. And then Jalen Williams, their backup big, their other backup big off the bench, had a hamstring problem, and he was going to be reevaluated in 4 to 6 weeks. And that was at the end of October. So we're talking maybe, early December-ish at best. So OKC is devoid of bigs on their roster. They've been rolling out small ball lineups, and maybe OKC is talented enough to just get through this gap without any of their three bigs, and they're not looking to make an emergency move, a break glass in case of emergency kind of trade, whatever. But if they were, the Rockets have a perfectly used, or I should say lightly used, Jock Landale, who is on an incredibly team-friendly contract, mind you. Again, a quick refresher on Jock Landale's contract. It's $8 million a year. And every year is essentially a team option because it's a non-guaranteed deal. So every year you can say, if you want, at the end of the season, whoever has Jock Landale, whether it's the Rockets or another team, they can be like, we're good. Thanks, Jock. You can go on. Or he can be used as an expiring contract in trades. There's a lot of flexibility with Jock's deal. And look, at the end of the day, he's still a very serviceable big man. Now, as far as from the Rockets' perspective, right, here's the thing, the reality of Jock Landale's situation on this roster. He is the third string center. He plays behind Alperen Sengun, who's the Rockets' best player, and Steven Adams. Now, Steven Adams has had the opportunity to, rest and rehabilitate. And, the Rockets are taking it easy with Adams because, in large part, they have Jock Landale available on the roster to play when Adams isn't available in the lineup. However, I would make the pretty strong argument here that Jock Landale has been a little underwhelming at times this season. And he doesn't really provide that much more than I think the Rockets could get out of that 5 spot if they were to instead play one of Jabari Smith Jr. as a small ball 5 or Jeff Green as a small ball 5, or just flat out increase the minutes for Alperen Sengun on the nights where Steven Adams isn't playing. Because let's be honest here, right? There's going to be plenty of games where Steven Adams is available, plays his 12 to 15, 18 minutes a night, whatever, and that's cool. And Steven Adams gives the Rockets a very different look out of that backup 5 spot, right? Steven Adams is a very different big man than Alperen Sengun. Jock Landale, not so much. Jock Landale really doesn't bring a ton different to the table, right? He sets screens, he's a hustle guy, he'll rebound. He doesn't bring a ton to the table. He doesn't bring a new dimension. He doesn't let you do things differently, either offensively or defensively, right? He doesn't have a ton of gravity in pick and roll. Teams are leaving him wide open at the three-point line, and even though he'll hit the occasional 3, right, he's not really a stretch 5 by NBA standards. Like, opposing defenses are willingly giving him 3-point shots at this stage. So I think the Rockets would honestly be better served in the minutes or in the games where Steven Adams isn't playing or where the matchup doesn't require a Steven Adams, in the rotation. Then why not just go to the Jabari Smith Jr. at the 5 lineups, right? Why not use Jeff Green? Because he's still on the roster and he was incredibly effective at various points last season. And you don't have to rely on Jeff exclusively as your backup 5, especially when you do still have Steven Adams on the roster. So this trade just makes way too much sense to me. Like, looking at it from a need perspective, from OKC's side, from the Rockets side, where Jock Landale is going to be buried in the depth chart, and as Steven Adams continues to, rehabilitate and get healthier and healthier and healthier, eventually it'll get to a point where Adams doesn't have to miss these games, right? And then Jock Landale is going to be completely buried on the bench and never getting any rotation minutes. So this is an opportunity to, strike while the iron is hot, to strike while there is an opportunity where OKC has a need of ideally some kind of a big, right? They literally don't have any big to throw out there right now on their roster. And OKC is so flush with draft capital, they could very easily give up a heavily protected future first round pick or a pair of future second rounders or something of value to acquire a serviceable big man in Jock Landale. And from a contract perspective, OKC has Kenrich Williams on the roster, just, kind of athletic wing type guy. He hasn't played a lick of minutes this season. I think he's literally only played in one game. He played 5 or 6 minutes in the one game that he played. He's not a part of OKC's rotation, doesn't project to be this season. That would be a very easy, seamless, kind of salary matching opportunity there. He makes a little bit less money, pardon me, than Jock Landale does. He's under contract for this season and the following year, and then has a team option a couple seasons down the line from now. So still an incredibly team-friendly contract in its own right, not quite as flexible as what the Rockets have going on with Jock Landale. But I mean, it makes too much sense for both sides. I think OKC gets a serviceable replacement level big while they're waiting on the health to get better for their 3 bigs. And the Rockets pick up, a future draft asset or a couple future draft assets if they get a couple second rounders, as well as, another guy in Kenrich Williams who's, an athletic finisher, can maybe be used to aggregate salary, somewhere down the line in a different trade, or, maybe he's an insurance policy guy on the wings for the Houston Rockets further down the line. Who knows? I like the idea of this trade. I like the idea of trying to capitalize on Jock Landale's value rather than just letting him, fade away on the Rockets bench as the season progresses and as Steven Adams gets healthier and healthier day by day, game by game. So I'm curious your thoughts. Would you like to see the Rockets make this trade with Jock Landale to the OKC Thunder, or is there another team out there potentially that could be in use of a backup 5? The Knicks were one team that I kind of had to take a look at. The Pelicans are just completely all kinds of torn up at this point. So I feel like the Pels might just have to fade their entire season with injuries. So they're not even a I don't think, a viable trade partner at this point. But yeah, are there any other teams out there that could use a serviceable replacement level starting big or a backup big man in Jock Landale that the Rockets should look at as potential trade partners? How would you feel about this OKC Thunder trade? Let me know your thoughts in the YouTube comments. But coming up, we want to get into the Rockets' efficiency or lack thereof for this season, some of the efficiency issues this season, the biggest culprits. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5, just $5, and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one spot. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the exact same page where you actually place your bets. Just head on over to FanDuel.com and join today. And while you're there, take a look at all the different odds that they have available to you. Check out their parlay builder, different season awards specials, or just the outright favorites to win the Super Bowl. Right now, the Chiefs at plus 430. I think it's the first time they've slid a little bit this season. They've been plus 420 for a long time. So plus 430 for the Chiefs, the Lions plus 460, the Ravens plus 600, and rounding out the top 5, the Bills at plus 800 and the 49ers plus 1,000. So again, all those odds and so much more, head on over to FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Okay, so let's take a look at exactly what is going on with the Houston Rockets' offensive efficiency and their shooting woes so far this season. So right now, through 11 games, the Rockets are currently a bottom 3 three-point shooting team. They are ranked 28th in the NBA. The only two teams worse at shooting the three ball than the Rockets currently are the Orlando Magic. So the Rockets are ranked at 31.3% from downtown right now. God, that's an ugly number. The only two teams worse than the Rockets are the Orlando Magic at 30.4% and then the Sacramento Kings at 30.1%. That is kind of brutal. And then when you take a closer look at why the Rockets are struggling so much, it's because a lot of their volume shooters are not shooting the ball very well. So let's start. We're going down the list in order of volume right now. So right now, Jalen Green attempting 8.7 threes per game is only shooting 34.4%. Fred VanVleet is shooting 7.1 threes per game, and he's shooting 28.2% on those threes. Dylan Brooks shooting 5 threes a game. He's at 34.5%. That's a little bit respectable. Still not great. Still under league average from last season and well below where Dylan Brooks was shooting to start last season. Because you'll remember, Dylan Brooks was like shooting lights out for like half the season, 2/3 of the season last year before he started to kind of regress a little bit from three-point land. Jabari Smith Jr., 4.7 attempts per game, shooting 25%. Tari, Eason next up, so that's your 4 starters. Then Tari, Eason off the bench, 2.8 attempts per game, and he's shooting 38.7%. So Tari Eason right now, of the guys getting significant rotation minutes, is the Rockets' second best three-point shooter. Reed Shepherd is only attempting 1.5 threes per game, but he's shooting 38.9% on his threes, so he needs to just shoot more of them. Cam Whitmore was averaging 2.63 attempts per game, and he's only shooting 5.6% for the season, so that certainly hurt the Rockets' numbers a little bit there. Aaron Holiday getting a little bit of a nod these past couple games. He's literally matched Reed Shepherd as far as attempt volume this season from 3, and he's shooting 37.5%. Alperen Sengun down at 31.3%. Amen Thompson, 15.4% on 1.2 attempts per game. The Rockets are just not shooting the ball well, but a deeper look at these numbers makes it even more concerning. The worst three-point percentage on wide open shots in the NBA. That means 6 feet of space or more, 6+ feet of space between the defender and the shooter in this season in the NBA. There are 2 Houston Rockets on this list. Jalen Green clocks in at number 10. Jalen Green is shooting 24% on wide open three-pointers. That's brutal. That is killer. That cannot sustain. And number 1 on this list, there are 8 other names on this list between Jalen Green and the other Houston Rocket at the number 1 spot. The number 1 player, literally the worst player in the NBA at shooting wide open threes this season. You got to know who it is. The writing's on the wall. Jabari Smith Jr. Brace yourself for this number. Jabari Smith Jr. is shooting 15%. 15% on wide open threes this NBA season. That's brutal. Like that cannot hold. This cannot continue for any length of the season, or the Rockets are just absolutely screwed. If you're not even able to knock down wide open shots, and that paints the perfect picture of what's going on with the Rockets offense, is, again, they do a relatively decent job. As frustrating as the Rockets offense can be and has been, with Ime Udoka, lack of creativity, very simple offensive actions, whatever, as easy as the Rockets offense has been to game plan against whatever, the Rockets are still generating wide open looks. They're literally just not hitting them. It's that simple sometimes. And unfortunately, like, I don't know, I have no idea what the fix is for Jabari Smith Jr. Again, it's not like, oh, well, Jabari's taking contested threes, or he's taking bad threes, or he's taking wide open threes. He has opportunities to hit wide open shots, and it's just not happening. He's not converting on the looks that he gets, either looks that are generated by Jalen Green getting downhill and kicking it out, or Alperen Sengun posting up and drawing a double team. Like, Jabari is supposed to be the release valve, right? Jabari is supposed to be the play finisher in the Rockets lineup, right? It's up to Jabari and Dylan and Fred to make shots that Jalen and Sengun have created for them. And so far, Jalen's also not free of excuse here either, because Sengun is involved in a lot of these actions, either as the screener or as, when he's operating on the perimeter, facing up, attacking in space, or operating off the block, whatever. Like, it's not Shingun's job to hit knockdown threes, and even then Sengun will hit the occasional 3-pointer. But by and large, right, Dylan is the least, has the least blame so far, but Jabari has been completely letting his teammates down by not knocking down these open shots. Fred VanVleet's been letting his teammates down considerably by not knocking down his wide open shots, and Jalen Green not knocking down his wide open shots. It's kind of that simple. But looking at, like, trying to, extrapolate, trying to look at the big picture here, I think there are degrees to the concerns here. First of which, Fred VanVleet is not going to be a 28% shooter for the rest of his career. In fact, Fred VanVleet for his career, I want to double check this number. I should have had it pulled up. Fred VanVleet for his career is a 37.5% three-point shooter. Look, and that's including his awful three-point shooting this season. Just last season for the Rockets, he shot just under 39% from the floor. So realistically, Fred is going to bounce back. I don't think Fred suddenly lost his shooting touch overnight. I would, of all the shooting woes in the Rockets roster, I would easily point to Fred VanVleet and say, okay, you know what? Fine. He's probably slumping. That's fine. Needs to get out of the slump expeditiously, but he's the guy that I'm least worried about of the Rockets' poor shooting issues. Jalen Green, the next one. Jalen Green, has improved in so many different areas of his game, but at the end of the day, his shooting just has to be better. This season, he's currently, after that really hot start that he was on, he's currently averaging a career low in true shooting percentage. He has not shot the ball well. It's tanked his numbers through the early part of the season. Right now, his TS is all the way down at 52.4%. That would be a career low for Jalen Green, worse than his sophomore campaign where he shot 53.8%, true shooting of 53.8%. So for Jalen Green, he's improved. He's making better decisions offensively at times, not withholding the game against the Wizards with the turnovers there. But part of it is just he has to do better at picking better spots to score from, and he's done that. Like his His rim field goal percentage this season has steadily increased, and it's gotten even better this season. Right now, he's shooting 70.6% on shots right at the rim. That's considerably better than just a couple years ago, where he was only shooting 55.5% on shots at the rim. So that's great. His three-point percentage has been kind of steady across the board through the past couple seasons. This season, he's shooting 34.4% on threes. Last year, 33.2%. The year before that, 33.8%. So he really, that three ball needs to jump up a couple more percentage points. What's really tanking Jalen Green's overall efficiency, though, is the mid-range shots. He is not converting mid-range shots at all. It's a really depressing percentage to look at. Right now, this season, on short mid-range field goals, Jalen Green is shooting 10.3%. On long mid-range field goals, Jalen Green is shooting 23.8%. So those numbers are pretty atrocious. And honestly, I've been an advocate of okay, if Jalen's trying to get in rhythm, use the, if he's snaking pick and roll, if the defense is dropping their big back and they're running you off the 3-point line, you got to take what the defense gives you sometimes. And sometimes all they're going to give you is that mid-range shot, whether you're snaking the pick and roll, whether you just dribble into it, whatever. And it sucks, but you got to be able to shoot better than that. You can't shoot 10% on short, close, mid-range twos. You can't shoot 8.8% on long twos. Those are just bad numbers. It's just got to be better than that. But I do think you look back historically at some of Jalen Green's mid-range shooting numbers, like his long twos from last season. He was shooting 41.5% on long twos last year. So hopefully that number bounces back and ideally improves from there. So I'm second most worried or second least worried about Jalen Green. He's gotta figure out the efficiency stuff, though. For him, it's literally just knocking down shots. It's really that simple. When Jalen Green is hitting his shots, he looks like a future superstar. When he's not hitting his shots, it looks really rough. And I thought that with the work that he did this offseason and again, his strong start to the year and how he looked at the end of last season, it looked like the shooting was going to be a much bigger factor this season. It looked like he was going to be more consistent in that regard. But so far through 11 games, it's been anything but that, right? It's been 5 good games and it's been 5 or 6 really bad games. So can he level out and get somewhere closer to the middle again, where, it would be better if instead of having the 5 really great games and the 5 or 6 really bad games, it'd be better if he just had 10 or 11 solid games. That would be much better for the Houston Rockets and for their offensive flow and all that good stuff. Again, it's about eliminating those lows. And then the last one here, for Jabari Smith Jr., he's the most concerning element here. Jabari is the most concerning factor of the Rockets' shooting woes because that's all Jabari's supposed to bring to the table offensively. He's not asked to do anything else offensively. And when I see sometimes in the YouTube comments or whatever, I even saw one the other day, people were like, man, Jackson never holds Jabari to the same, standard that he holds Jalen Green to. Yeah, because they're very different players. Jalen Green projects to be an all-star player. He has the talent, he has the skill, it's all there. Jabari Smith Jr., despite being a number 3 overall draft pick, hasn't showcased anywhere near that level of star ability, right? And I'm not, at this point, I'm not holding my breath hoping that Jabari Smith Jr. turns into a star-level player. Jabari Smith Jr. is a role player at this stage in his career. Jalen Green is an aspiring star player, a true franchise cornerstone, a number 1 or number 2 option on this Houston Rockets team right there next to Alperen and Sengun. So there's different standards for these guys and how they're expected to play and what they're supposed to do on the basketball floor. There's a lot more weight on Jalen Green's shoulders for the success of this Houston Rockets team. That being said, the one thing that Jabari Smith Jr. has to be able to do offensively to fulfill his role in this team is hit 3-point shots. That's all he's asked to do offensively. Jabari is asked to do 3 things on the floor. He's asked to defend, he's asked to rebound on both sides of the floor, right? Offensively, defensively. And then he's asked to knock down the open looks that he gets within the flow of the offense. And he's literally not doing that final thing. 15% on wide open threes is just flat out unacceptable. That's almost borderline untenable. That by itself, that one stat by itself should absolutely warrant a benching for Jabari Smith Jr. And with Tari Eason playing as well as he is and shooting the ball as well as he is, should absolutely be starting in his place if this were a meritocracy-based, system where Ime was playing the best available players at all times. So Jabari's got to get this thing figured out, man. Because at the end of the day, even when he's defending at a high level, even when he's rebounding at a high level, even when he's overperforming the standard expectations for those two elements, those two roles that he provides, or those two skills that he provides, if his offense is dragging the team down that significantly, the defense and the rebounding just flat out doesn't make up for it. Because we've seen this Rockets team be able to eke out and drag themselves to some wins using their defense, using their rebounding, but that's an exhausting way to play, right? It's tough to have to play by the skin of your teeth every single game because you are so bad at shooting the ball offensively. It makes sense to me. So at this point, these are the biggest issues with the Houston Rockets offense, and one of them, Fred VanVleet, I think will work itself out sooner rather than later. He's a good shooter, historically a good shooter. Fred will be fine. Jalen, hopefully, will get back to trending the right direction the way he was to start the season. But, who knows? Maybe we get 10, 15 more games down the line, and it's just more or less of the same of what we've seen his first 3 years. I'm optimistic that the shooting will balance back out in a good way for Jalen, but part of it is also eliminating some of the bad shots in his shot diet, right? Those long twos that he's shooting 10% on. Those are not good looks. Or sorry, the short twos. I apologize. And then for Jabari, he's just got to figure out how to shoot the ball. It's point blank, that simple. Got to get back to being able to shoot the ball at a high level, at least the way that he was shooting the ball last season. Anything less than that, and one of Tari, Eason, or Amen Thompson should have that starting spot before a quarter of the season is over, or the Rockets are just flat out leaving points on the table, leaving wins on the table by continuing to give Jabari all those looks, all those offensive reps, all those opportunities. Coming up, want to talk about the NBA Cup action so far. The Houston Rockets' upcoming matchups with the LA Clippers. The Houston Rockets' former franchise cornerstone coming to town.
I'm the head honcho.
James Harden's a part of the Clippers too. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Mint Mobile. Look, with big wireless providers, what you see is never really what you get. Sometimes between the store and your first month's bill, the price you thought you were paying magically skyrockets. With Mint Mobile, you'll never have to worry about gotchas ever again. When Mint Mobile says $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, they absolutely mean it. So say bye-bye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with premium wireless plans starting at $15 a month. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/lockedonnba. That's mintmobile.com/lockedonnba. Cut your wireless bill to just $15 a month at mintmobile.com/lockedonnba. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plans only. Speeds slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. My goodness, I went long in that second segment. I'm looking down at my timer and I went super overboard. But look, the offensive issues for this team are a big problem, and it's something that had to be addressed. Wanted to just highlight some of where those issues were. Now I also have to shout out. I can't take credit for the tease into this segment. Shout out to Rahat Red 94 on Twitter for making that joke the other day, and I thought it was too good not to pass up and use here on the show.
I'm the head honcho.
Look, these matchups with the Clippers, Rockets Clippers, are going to be a ton of fun. Look, it's James Harden back in town for a couple games. It's Kevin Porter Jr. playing against his former team, the Rockets team that tried to rehabilitate and salvage his career, and then things went super sideways. I'm not going to get into the politics of whether KPJ should or shouldn't even be in the NBA at this stage after everything that happened. But the fact of the matter is he is in the NBA. He's playing for the Clippers, and he is right now a big part of what they're trying to do in the absence of Kawhi Leonard. So really quickly here from the jump, let me do a quick refresher on how NBA Cup group play works, what the Houston Rockets group stage looks like, who's played so far, and kind of how it all functions before getting into some thoughts on these upcoming matchups with the Clippers. So first off, Group play, all teams are divided into groups of 5. So the Rockets group is West Group A, which includes the Minnesota Timberwolves, the LA Clippers, the Sacramento Kings, and the Portland Trailblazers, which is pretty nice, all things considered, because as it stands right now, the Rockets currently are the, I'll say the second best team in their group, although the Timberwolves have had a bit of a disappointing start to their season. So, realistically, it's kind of anyone's group for the taking. Coming in, especially based on how they played last year, you would have thought the T-Wolves would have been favorites to win this group. But again, they're struggling so far this season, including a NBA Cup loss to the Portland Trailblazers. The first little bit of Cup action for West Group A, the Blazers beat the Timberwolves 122 to 108. The Timberwolves just looked like zombies out there, looked disinterested, lifeless. It was a really disappointing game from them. Yeah, very ugly all-around performance, and very nice of the Blazers to try and sneak a win out of there for the Rockets, because that'll hopefully help out Houston in the group play stage. So basically how it works, 8 teams will eventually advance to the knockout stage. It's whichever team finishes with the best record in group play, and then there are 2 wildcard teams from each conference that are selected. Now, it's also worth noting here that in group play, point differential is a factor. So in these group play games, so not the first matchup against the Clippers, but the second matchup on Friday night, that is the NBA action, or the NBA Cup matchup for the Rockets and Clippers. The Rockets ideally want to win, when they want to win both games, but you want to win that game, and you also want to win by as much as possible. You want to run up the score on your opponent, because if there is a tie at the end of group play, if 2 teams have an identical group play record, the deciding factor, the tie-breaking factor, is who had the better point differential. So as it stands right now, the Blazers are leading West Group A 1-0 in NBA Cup action, and they have a plus 14 point differential after 1 game. So it's a good thing that the Blazers won. I wish they would have won by a little bit less against the Timberwolves, but realistically, I don't think the Blazers are going to be in the running for the best record at the end. But them handing the T-Wolves a loss on a very off night for the Timberwolves helps out the Rockets in the grand scheme of things. So that's just your quick refresher on how the group stage works. And then once you get to the knockout round, it's 8 teams, head-to-head battle. Very simple stuff there. Just, quarterfinals, semifinals, championship round. That's that. It's pretty simple. Now, into this Rockets-Clippers matchup. This is a Clippers team that has played a bit of a different brand of basketball than they have in previous years. They've really locked in, or tried to lock in, I guess, defensively, really kind of embracing more of a defensive identity this season, kind of by necessity, because they just don't have the offensive firepower that they've had in years past, with, last season leading the league in isolations with Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, Russell Westbrook for a little bit there. It's a very different Clippers team, but it's also going to look eerily familiar to a lot of Rockets fans, because we've seen, I don't know how many different seasons have we watched James Harden drag a ragtag group of role players to places that they had no business being in the Western Conference standings. Now, this is not your mama's James Harden. This is not MVP Houston James Harden. This is over-the-hill 35-year-old James Harden, but he's still doing a good job, manufacturing wins for the Clippers. He's still racking up the counting stats. The efficiency is garbage right now for James. He's had some of the worst offensive efficiency of his career so far this season, but he's still managing to find ways to help the Clippers win games. And it'll be a fun matchup. It's always fun whenever James Harden comes back into town. I'm really looking forward to seeing how the Rockets kind of handle guarding him in particular, because James Harden is still, even at this age in his career, he's still a master manipulator of opposing defenses, and the Rockets, sitting as the number 3 best defense in the NBA, right? What does Ime Udoka break out to try and flummox James Harden, right? Does he trap him? Does he let him live in single coverage? Does he force James Harden to try to beat you? Does he, not let James Harden facilitate to his teammates, right? Does he tell everybody else to stay home at who they're on who they're guarding, and make James try to beat Dillon Brooks or Amen Thompson or Tari Eason one-on-one? My God, I cannot wait to watch Amen Thompson clamp James Harden. That is going to be so much fun. But I also can't wait to watch Amen Thompson try and clamp Kevin Porter Jr. I honestly don't know which one I'm more looking forward to between KPJ and James Harden getting clamped up by the Rockets' elite wing defenders. I don't know which one would be more fun to me. I'm curious, your thoughts. Who are you most looking forward to getting tied up by the Terror Twins? Is it James Harden or is it Kevin Porter Jr.? And look, realistically, I'm sure that KPJ still feels some kind of way about how things ended and how his career with the Rockets ended and him having to, step away from NBA action for a whole season and then, playing overseas in Greece and then coming back this season. And so I'm sure that KPJ is going to be playing with a massive chip on his shoulder in this game. And that could either be a really good thing for the Houston Rockets or it could be a really bad thing, because being completely honest here, we know that KPJ has a ton of talent. We know that he's an incredibly talented player, and when he gets it going, he's absolutely capable of filling it up, scoring at a high level, and completely dominating a game. But we also know he's capable of getting in his own head. We know he's capable of making really piss-poor decisions on a basketball court, tunnel visioning, not involving teammates, taking ill-advised shots. And so which version of KPJ are the Rockets going to have to face? And it's going to be kind of an emotional return for KPJ. So hopefully that plays into the favor of the Houston Rockets. Hopefully they face the bad version of KPJ in this game in these two games against the Clippers. I am kind of bummed that the Rockets face the Clippers in a regular season game before the NBA Cup action. I almost feel like it takes some of the wind out of the sails of like how hype the NBA Cup action game would have been on Friday if they hadn't played the Clippers just, one game before that on Wednesday. Because I feel like there are probably going to be some fireworks maybe in this Wednesday showing against the Clippers. Again, a lot of old ties between these two teams. And, you see some of the fireworks going off, elsewhere, like Tuesday night NBA Cup action. There was, the Dallas Mavericks and Golden State Warriors. It was Klay Thompson's first game back in the Bay. Steph Curry went on a 10-0 run to close out the game. He gave him a little night-night. Watching Steph go head-to-head against Klay Thompson, it was an insane game packed with so much emotion and narratives and storylines, and the players were hyped about it, and they were jacked up and excited about the games. And I just feel like the Rockets are going to miss out on some of that emotion, some of that intensity, because they're playing the Clippers in a game right before their first Cup game. But at the same time, it's not going to take any of the meaning out of this first game, I guess. It should still be a fun, exciting game. Very curious to see how Alperen Sengun matches up with Ivica Zubac. Zubac has been playing a really strong brand of basketball this season. Zubac and Norm Powell have stepped up big for the Clippers in the absence of Kawhi Leonard. So how do the Rockets guard those two guys? If Dillon Brooks is going to be the primary defender on James Harden, then who takes the task of guarding Norm Powell, right? Are they going to put Fred VanVleet on Norm Powell? Are they going to trust Jalen Green to guard Norm Powell? Will they? I don't think they're going to throw Jabari Smith Jr. on him, right? It's probably going to be Jabari on Derrick Jones Jr. There's a lot of interesting matchups. The biggest difference between these two teams is the fact that the Clippers are a top 3 3-point shooting team in the NBA this season, currently sitting at 39.4% from downtown. And the Rockets, again, a bottom 3 3-point shooting team. So this should be a game where the Rockets are really going to have to rely on their ability to kind of make up that point differential elsewhere on the floor, right? They're going to have to try their best to dominate inside, right? So ideally get Zubac in foul trouble early. That should be something that Alperen Sengun should be really effective at doing, hopefully. And then once you get Zoo out of the game, then, if the Clippers go small, right, punish them on the interior, crash the glass hard, get those second and third chance opportunities, because you're going to need them. James Harden is a master at manipulating defenses, at finding open 3-point shots for his teammates, and the Rockets have been such an awful 3-point shooting team this season. If you let the Clippers get hot from downtown, I don't know if the Rockets can outmath the Clippers, right? If the Clippers hit anywhere from 10 to 15 threes this game, and the Rockets are continuing to shoot as poorly as they have been, and they only get up 5, 7, 8 threes made, then you're going to lose the math advantage unless you win somewhere else on the floor, right? You have to be able to win at the free throw line, or you have to be able to win in the second chance points battle or points off turnovers. And that's what the Rockets have basically done all season, right? They've had to win in other ways. They haven't been able to rely on exclusively their offensive production to win games. They've had to rely on their defense. They've had to rely on their rebounding. And that's going to be no different in this game, at least until we see that the Rockets' three-point shooting starts to regress back to the mean. Maybe this will be the game that it happens. I mean, it's the 12th game of the regular season. It sure would be nice to have a game where the Rockets just suddenly shoot lights out from three, and then you could go to bed comfortably knowing that they had like a 20-point blowout win against the Clippers because they did all the other things that they do. They defended, they rebounded, they did all the good stuff, the physicality, everything they bring to the table. And then on top of that, the cherry on top, they also knocked down some threes. So should be a fun game, should be a fun set of games for the Houston Rockets. And the last note I have here is I just hope that they don't not overexert themselves, but you know, it's very tough to win 2 straight games against the same team. That's one of my favorite things about these in-season matchups where you do play the same team twice. It's a great learning opportunity for the Rockets, right? How do these teams make adjustments between game 1 and game 2? So if the Rockets lose game 1, right, what adjustments does Ime make going into game 2 of cup action on Friday? Vice versa. If they win game 1, what adjustments does Ty Lue make going into Friday's matchup? It'll be really impressive if the Rockets can walk away with 2 straight wins against the Clippers, especially with the second of them being cup action and all the stakes and the weight placed on that game in particular. Should be a ton of fun. I'm very excited. I'm looking forward to these 2 games. And I'm also looking forward to the Houston Rockets hopefully embarrassing both former franchise cornerstones, James Harden and Kevin Porter Jr.
I'm the head honcho.
On that note, that's going to do it for today's episode. Remember, the best way you can help us grow our show is to the best way you can help us grow our show is to listen every day on a podcast platform if you're choosing, like and subscribe on YouTube. And while you're there, drop us a comment, subscribe to the Rockets, the daily Locked on Rockets newsletter, all that good stuff. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked on Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.